Have a look at the papers. Flo is also with us. Going to start in Canada today, aren't you, Flo? Papers are reacting to that deadly shooting in a mosque in Quebec during Sunday night prayers.
That's right. As you can imagine, there's a lot of shock in Canadian papers that are paying tribute to the victims. Let's start with an article in the Globe and Mail today. You can see they're talking about 6 men who sought better lives in Quebec. 6 men killed in cold blood, an act of terrorism that's left the country in shock.
And details also started to emerge about the suspect as well. He's been identified, hasn't he, as 27-year-old Alexandre Bissonnette.
That's right. You can get all the details once again here in the Canadian papers. I pulled out this article from the Globe and Mail. Police say he wasn't on their radar before the attack, but according to this article, he was known as an online troll who was inspired by the extreme right wing here in France, the Marine Le Pen's Front National. He also stood up for the U.S. President Donald Trump online and was against immigration to Quebec, especially by Muslims, according to this article.
And initially, the police actually detained a second suspect here, didn't they? He's now given an interview to La Presse.
That's right. This is Mohamed Belhadir. You can read his interview here. Now, he says, this article says his arrest was a big mistake. He had been at the mosque and went back in when he heard shots being fired to help the victims. And he got scared when he saw armed people come in. He didn't realize they were the police. And you can see here, he says, they thought I was a suspect. It's normal. He says that he actually respects the police for arresting him.
The arrests are causing a lot of speculation about the motive behind the attack here.
That's right. There's a very interesting article in the Toronto Sun talking about what happened in the immediate aftermath. There was a lot of speculation online, rumors flying around. Was this white supremacy? Was it Islamic terrorism? This article is very critical of this, what it's calling the politicization of the tragedy. It seemed like many people were desperately wanting this attack to be something that it wasn't, and watched the news develop kind of like a sports event, I guess you could say. It seemed like there was high-fiving when all of a sudden the story started changing. And you can see that this article says it's a very disturbing phenomenon to watch. It's a sign of sad times in our country.
Now, of course, that deadly mosque shooting coming as well amid heated reactions to the US President Donald Trump's executive order on immigration and refugees.
That's right. Let's stay in the Canadian press. There's this really interesting cartoon I pulled out from the Globe and Mail once again, because, of course, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted a message, of welcoming message, stark contrast to Donald Trump's ban. He said, diversity is our strength. You can see that on this T-shirt here. Diversity is our strength versus build a wall, of course, something Donald Trump wants to do. And you can see that the title here is talking about this clash of civilizations. So perhaps a clash of civilizations between the U.S. and Canada, but also something that we're seeing inside the U.S. as well.
And you pulled out some cartoons as well, haven't you, from the Arab language press?
That's right. The poor little Statue of Liberty. She's taking quite a beating today in the Arab language press. You can see here Al-Khad. This is a Jordanian paper. You can see the Statue of Liberty stuck behind this barbed wire fence, which is actually a bunch of executive orders by Donald Trump. Meanwhile, she's being crucified in a cartoon in Al-Quds. What is she being crucified on? Well, you can see the T of Donald Trump's name. This is a pan-Arab paper based in London. There's another pan-Arab paper based in London, Al Hayat, which has this article, which is very defiant and says, we have to oppose this policy until the end of the nightmare. And it reminds readers, however, that it's not the West in general that is opposed to Islam. And it reminds readers that there have been a lot of shows of support for Muslims, including in the United States.
Now, meanwhile, the British paper The Guardian, they're focusing on the consequences of this fear of Islam appearing in many parts of the West.
That's right. It's a very interesting editorial today. You can see they're talking about how terrorism is not a religion. Terrorism is a tactic that's been employed by Muslims, Jews, anarchists, communists, Christians, and Buddhists. And yet there's this persistent belief in the West today that Islam has some unique and visceral connection to violence. This is wrong in theory and untruthful in fact. And you can see, it says here, the hatred of Muslims can damage Western societies far more than Islam could. So it's a word of warning for anybody having this fear of Islam.
And African leaders, they've also been lashing out, haven't they, against Donald Trump's orders?
That's right. The African Union meeting in Addis Ababa for a 2-day summit. You can see here this article in The Independent talking about the chief of its commission who lashed out, saying the very country to which many of our people were taken as slaves during the transatlantic slave trade has now decided to ban refugees from some of our countries. So you can see, not mincing her words there. Just while we're talking about The Independent, they also have a very interesting article about Donald Trump that's actually one of their most read articles today. A growing number of psychologists are starting to question Trump's state of mind. Now, until recently, it was actually illegal for psychologists to assess public figures and talk to journalists about their findings, but this rule has changed, and so mental health experts are speaking out. And you can see in that headline their, I guess, analysis of Donald Trump. They say that he displays the classic traits of a mental illness called malignant narcissism. It's quite a fascinating article, and you should check it out in The Independent.
Okay, thank you very much, Flo. Flo with the papers, and Stephen with business on France 24.